Hello students, welcome to the first lecture on the lecture series of area and perimeter of basic geometric figures. So we'll discuss this chapter in terms of the concepts and the kind of problems involved in various competitive exams. Okay, so let's start this topic. So what is area and what is perimeter? Okay, these are the main terms that is involved in this title of this topic, right? So what area is? Area is actually the amount of space enclosed. Okay, so the amount of space that is enclosed within a 2D shape. Okay, so we have to define each term here. Okay, so what is amount of space enclosed and what is enclosed? Enclosed is nothing but closed. Okay, so the shape must be closed. The first thing that we need to note down here is the shape must be a 2D shape, so it can't be a 3D shape. Okay, so this is a 2D shape. What we are talking about is a 2D shape. So in a 2D shape, we want the space is to be enclosed. So there can't be any open gap in the whole structure. Okay. So amount of space enclosed within a 2D shape is called area. And what is perimeter? And perimeter is actually the total length of the boundary of that shape. Okay. So what kind of 2D shape are we talking about? We are talking about circles, triangles, quadrilaterals like rectangles, squares, trapeziums, and parallelograms. Okay, so we will discuss each one in detail, like what a circle is, what is radius of a circle, what is diameter of a circle, okay, what is the area of a circle, and whether and what kind of formulas do you need to find the area of a circle and perimeter of a circle. Okay, what is the role of pi there? Okay, so we'll also learn the role of pi. Okay, you must have heard this word at various parts of your life, but here we will discuss it in detail. Okay, so we will discuss what a diagonal of a quadrilateral is. Okay, what are the relation among them, and we will learn the relation between area and perimeter of a structure or shape. Okay, we will learn all these things in this chapter. Okay, so first thing that we need to know is a quadrilateral called rectangle. Okay, so what a rectangle is? Rectangle is nothing but a quadrilateral with 4 right angles. Okay, so what it means is that all the 4 angles in the quadrilateral are 90 degrees. Okay, so if you have a quadrilateral and then you must have, if you pick a random quadrilateral, what you will have is you will have different angles at each corner, right? So what we do is we just fix 2 corners, that is 2 opposite corners at 90 degrees. Okay, and then what we will get is a rectangle. Okay, so the 4 corners, at the all 4 corners, all the angles becomes 90 degree, then we call this as a rectangle. Okay, so what is area of a rectangle? Okay, so given a rectangle, okay, so the 4 corners are 90 degrees. Okay, the 4 angles in the rectangle are 90 degrees. Okay, so in order to evaluate the area of that rectangle, what we will do is area A is equal to length into width. Okay, so what we will do is we will product length with width in order to get the area. So if your rectangle is like this, then what its area will be is equal to, it will be equal to length into width. Okay, these 2 things multiplied. Okay, so let's see what a diagonal of a rectangle will be. So if we are given a rectangle, then its diagonal will be 2 lines connected to opposite corners of the rectangle. Okay, you have 2 pairs of opposite corners in the rectangle. So if we connect all those opposite pairs, then we connect all those opposite pairs with a line. Okay, then what we get is pair of diagonal. Those lines are called diagonals of a rectangle. Okay, so what is the perimeter of a rectangle? So if you are given a rectangle, okay, so rectangle is what? A quadrilateral with all the angles inside it as 90 degree. Okay, so how you will calculate the perimeter? So perimeter is nothing but the boundary, length of that boundary, right? How we measure the perimeter? We measure the length of the boundary. So how you will measure the length of the boundary? So as you can see rectangle here, okay, so in this rectangle what you can see is there are two lengths, okay, the upper one and the lower one, okay, these two have same lengths, okay, and widths, you can see two widths here, width lines, okay, and these two are actually same, the upper length and lower length are same, okay, and the width lines are also same, the two width lines are same. So how we will measure the boundary? So what we will do is we'll first measure the two lengths, okay, that are equal, that is why we'll multiply 2 with length, okay, and then what we do is we know that all the two width lines are same, that is why we multiply 2 with width, okay. So what we are left with is 2 into length plus 2 into width, that is actually equal to 2 into length plus width, okay. So we have already discussed what is a diagonal. The diagonal is nothing but the line segment connecting two opposite corners of a rectangle, okay. So what we need to do is we need to measure the diagonal of a rectangle. So how we can do this? We can actually use the fact that all the four angles involved in that rectangle, inside that rectangle, are actually 90 degrees, right? If you have a rectangle like this, then all the four corners have angle 90 degrees, okay. So then what we do is we draw the diagonals, okay. We will connect two opposite corners, okay. So if we connect all the two opposite corners and we get a pair of two diagonals, okay. So here you can see that let's remove one diagonal, okay. We removed one diagonal. Then what we are left with is two right angle triangle. If you can see clearly, we have two right angled triangles, okay. These two angles are 90 degrees. So we have two right angle triangles. Let's erase one right angle triangle, okay, and keep one only, okay. So right now what we are left with is only one right angle triangle. So just look at this right angle triangle and try to remember a theorem called Pythagoras theorem, okay. What it told us about a right angle triangle is the square of hypotenuse is equal to the square of perpendicular plus square of base, okay. So here the base is the length, okay, and the perpendicular is the width. So basically if we say diagonal as the hypotenuse, then what we are left with is diagonal square is actually equal to length square plus width square. So if we want to calculate just the diagonal, just the length of diagonal, okay, what we will do is let's denote it by d, and what we do is we take the square root on both sides, okay. So what we are left with is we are left with diagonal is equal to actually length square plus width squares whole square root,